see some familiar faces and some new ones, so thank you. So, as you can tell, I'm a taxidermist. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the history of taxidermy, a little bit about why it exists, and I'm going to be just bombarding you with all of my favorite artists and a little bit of my own work. So I hope you're prepared. This is going to be fun. So the first question to ask is, what is art? Anyone want to venture, stab at this? What is art?
Expression?
Expression. Yes, definitely. So, art is defined as something that has a significance more than the ordinary. It's something that provokes beauty or truth or expresses emotion. But that can be something soothing, or it can be something challenging, provoking. And art is also considered something that just transcends the practical function of an object. It might even not have a function at all, other than being art. So taxidermy, what is taxidermy? Does anyone know where the origination of the word comes from? Yes, right in the front?
Taxi is moving, and dermy is the skin.
You are correct. One bonus point. Taxi is from Greek to arrange the skin. So it's really just straightforward. But what that entails is it's a little bit more complicated than just moving the skin around. So we're going to talk about that. So how old is taxidermy? Anybody want to venture a guess how long taxidermy has been around?
5,000 years.
5,000 years? What? You've been on Wikipedia today, haven't you?
No.
Well, we're going to go back first to leather. We're going to talk about preserving the skin of animals. Originally, this was done by brain tanning. What you would do is you would take the kill and you would take the brain matter and then you would rub it on the skin, and that would actually produce a very, very kind of a vague idea of leather. It would be rough, it wouldn't be perfect, definitely wouldn't be Gucci, but it would be leather. And yes, we go back to the 5th and 3rd millennium BCE through the Mesopotamians and Sumerians. Pretty much the first cultures, pretty much the first people to settle and have agriculture and do this, also did leather. So the ancient Egyptians were the first ones to do large-scale animal preservation. In fact, there are significantly more animal mummies than there ever were human mummies. The Egyptians really revered them as gods and as companions in the present life and the afterlife. And I think it's obvious, but I'm just going to say it. A taxidermist's skill is only as good as their methods and tools. There is a lot of crap taxidermy out there. But modern taxidermy began with arsenic soap. You might have heard of arsenic before. It's incredibly toxic, especially if you get it on your skin. But it is a powerful preservative, and it was the first breakthrough method to actually get taxidermy to exist, for the skins to last longer than they would normally deteriorate. And surprisingly, it is still used today, mostly in museum settings where the animals are never going to be touched anyway, never going to be moved, or if they are, they've been labeled as such, and then you can use gloves to handle them. So it's such a strange throwback, but it's still actually one of the best preservatives today. So where did the word stuff come from? There's two different ideas of where the word stuffing came from. The first is that you would take the animal skin and sew it up and then stuff it full of straw and cotton and whatever else was handy. The other thing that you could do was to make a study skin. This was much, much later. We're talking like 1800s. And you would open up an animal, clean it all out, and then use a bit of cotton and on a stick. I'll show you a study skin later. And then you would sew the animal back up around the cotton. And that was used, those are still used in science today to help catalog different species around the world. But it moved on from that stuffing phase of straw and hay and that kind of stuff, onto full-scale carpentry. Not too long after that, we're talking in the more like the 1700s is when carpentry first started being used in taxidermy. There we go. So here's a model. This is a modern model of what taxidermy looks like. You're going to see there's something that looks a little like string up at the top, and that is wood wool or excelsior. This is the kind of stuff that you find in craft baskets or like, you know, like Easter baskets and things like that. It's actually really, really fabulous to use as a mannequin for taxidermy. And then here's another one with a bird. You can see this one has a lot less cotton, a lot more precision with the excelsior. Really beautiful pieces. I mean, these are so incredible that they could actually like cut the animal in half and show it like this. This is so cool. So what are some of the skills needed for taxidermy? Well, you definitely have to be good with sculpting. You need to have good knife skills. Carpentry doesn't hurt. There's definitely mold making and casting, sometimes with things like polyurethane or Bondo, different types of things like that. Painting is almost always involved. Then chemistry. This is, we're talking about acid pickles and tanning baths and things like that. You need to know your chemistry. And then construction, I mean, just making a form is a task in and of itself. Being good at sewing doesn't hurt, but really, really what's best, the one skill you have to have for taxidermy, you have to have an eye for anatomy, you have to have an eye for reference. That means looking at photographs and looking at video of animals and seeing how they actually behave. Because how they behave and how we think they behave are often a little bit different. So here's the construction of a wolf. This was done in, this was done in 1946. And I'm going to show you the progression. Here they first used the actual skeletal remains to make a model. And then they built it up with plaster casting. And then here they made a reverse mold with it. Here it is looking probably at its least like taxidermy right here, but it's the closest. Now here's what you're left with. This is called a mannequin. This is the interior of the body, that basically everything that was taken away when you took the skin off the animal. And it has to be really exact, close to what the animal was on the inside. And then here's the final product, the wolf. So a lot of things that don't look like taxidermy, and then all of a sudden, wow, there you go. So why does taxidermy exist? Can anyone think of a good reason why taxidermy should exist? Trophy, yeah, trophy.
Education.
Education, history. All good remarks. Originally, the advances in tanning allowed naturalists to begin documenting and cataloging animals from the New World and beyond. We take it for granted now that we have the internet, now that we have encyclopedias, but there was a time when we couldn't tell one bird from the next from a drawing or anything like that, and having the skin made the difference. So here is a photograph from the LA Natural History Museum. This is a collection of just different types of heads, emphasizing the different beak structures, just from all the different varieties of birds that they had there. Really phenomenal stuff. If you ever get to the LA Natural History Museum, great time there. And then, like you said about education, the taxidermy allowed the public to be taught about species that they never would have seen otherwise. at the time, when taxidermy was first being introduced into museums like the Smithsonian, they were sensational. Like they were like blockbuster hits. People were lined up outside the museum around the block just to see these displays. It was pretty cool stuff. And of course, that sparked interest in conservation efforts. You know, if you've never seen an Asian elephant before, why would you care that it's going extinct? Seeing the animal really gives you a closeness to it that makes you care a little bit more than just a drawing. So, for instance, here's our polar bear. This is a skin that's also from the LA Natural History Museum. And he's actually made up of 6 different polar bears because they couldn't find one that was perfect. So they actually assembled together, used different parts from different pieces to make the one beautiful display. So talking about conservation, taxidermy is inextricably linked to conservation. The importance of educating the public about endangered and threatened species is so incredibly important. Like I said, there's almost no replacement to seeing the animal up close and personal. So for instance, here is an actual taxidermy diorama of walruses at play and at rest. Really, really cool stuff. I mean, none of us are probably ever going to actually see a walrus in person live. This gets me excited. This is cool. Scientific collector, so he went out and he found those finches, and then he made those study skins. Some of those study skins you can actually still see at the California Academy of Sciences. Amazing, mind-blowing stuff. And that was what enabled him to start to, well, he didn't do it while he was on the trip, but it was when he was back and really investigating the differences between the beaks and the habitats of the finches. That really got his wheels turning, and it led to the theory of evolution. But most people have heard of John James Audubon, of course, the famous bird conservator. He was a taxidermist. He actually taxidermied many of his species that he studied because he wanted to get it right. He wanted to actually represent the bird in its trueness. Martha Ann Maxwell was a tireless taxidermist and naturalist. I mean, we're talking about naturalists at this point. And she doesn't get a lot of credit, but she was really amazing. And she was one of the first people to ever make a living diorama for someone to see the animal in its actual habitat rather than being just alone. Walter Potter's one of my favorite. Has anyone heard of Walter Potter? One? Walter Potter was a very eccentric taxidermist. He lived in the UK, and he was one of the first people to popularize anthropomorphic taxidermy, which means making them like human. So he did a lot of really great fun dioramas with little kittens and little dogs and rabbits and things like that at like a schoolhouse, or having a wedding, or just having a big drama in his dioramas. Really fun stuff. William Temple Hornaday was one of the most prolific taxidermists of the 20th century, and he was responsible for really gaining a lot of public interest in the plight of the dying buffalo in the western plains of the United States. The buffalo were dying out, and he actually went out and collected some of the last few remaining buffalo just to make a diorama of them so that people would care, so that people would see that this is something that's happening. And his diorama had an impact. It actually made a difference. And then Carl Akeley and Delia Akeley, the couple there, they made some of the best dioramas ever made in the United States. And they went into the Smithsonian primarily. Really beautiful dioramas. And then the last one, Murray Elizabeth Oppenheim, she was one of the first taxidermists to take taxidermy into a surrealist art form. Really fun stuff, I'll show you later. So here's those study skins I was telling you about. This is again at the Los Angeles Natural History Museum, and we're studying here the yellow-throated longclaw and the western meadowlark. Now, just looking at them, you could never tell that they're two different species. They look exactly the same. And that's what this drawer was really educating us about, was convergent evolution. How certain types of feather configurations, certain types of colors actually can happen completely separate in two different species because it just happens to be useful for their environment. Really cool stuff. Never would have known that without taxidermy. So, what you were talking about trophies a little bit earlier. Legal hunting helps control herd populations in conservation efforts. Taxidermists often mount animals for the hunter, who in turn may harvest the meat from the animal. This is probably what most of us are more familiar with in terms of taxidermy, like traditional trophy taxidermy. But it's strictly regulated at a state and federal level, and ethical taxidermists refuse work that involve illegal animals. And many go a step further and will not work on animals that were killed for the purpose of taxidermy. So they'll only work on, say, animals that were an invasive species and were being taken out because they were pests, that type of thing. So this is just a listing of the major laws that protect the animals in the United States. Basically, it says, don't kill anything that shouldn't be killed. Don't kill any threatened species. Don't hurt anything that really needs protection. And it really is common sense, but not knowing the law is never an excuse for breaking the law. We're talking felony crimes at this level, just for possessing even a single feather. It's like a golden eagle or a bald eagle. Just possessing a single feather is a felony. So it's kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal to educate yourself about these laws because they protect and conserve our wildlife. And as you may have gathered, there are many different types of taxidermy. There's the traditional, which was the photorealistic reimagining of the animal with its natural behaviors and habitat, more of that trophy style. You can do anything from small and large mammals, birds, you can do fish. A lot of fish these days are mostly replicas, but that's okay. We like replicas too. A small subset of taxidermy is actually in pet preservation. There's a few people who specialize in reimagining your deceased pet, but wow, that is a really tall task, and very few taxidermists are up to it. But anyone who can do it, more power to them. It's tough stuff. Then there's a very loose category called biological art. That could be anything that involves feathers or, say, iridescent beetles from Africa, or, as I'll show you, even bacteria. And then the last is the style that I belong to, which is called interpretive or rogue style taxidermy. And what that means is using traditional taxidermy supplies, but using them in a wholly different way, little out of the box, which is what I like. So I'm going to show you a few of my favorite rogue taxidermists. This is Katie Innamoroto, and she lives on the East Coast, and she found a fallow deer here and was able to reimagine it as life and death together. Really interesting piece from her. And then Julia Deville, she works primarily with birds, and even though it's just a little set of wings, it's still really provocative, really beautiful. And then this is another one of her favorite pieces. One of my favorites of hers. And then there's this little piglet full of Swarovski gems. You know, complete opposites, doesn't make any sense together, but yet it does. That's Julia. Now, Kate Clark is someone a little bit different. She actually uses hides that were going to be thrown away because they had like divots, or they had bald patches, or they were basically not perfect. So she takes them and she reimagines them as both animal and human. So she takes a casting of a real person's face, but she uses the animal's hide when she actually makes the face itself. And her work is meant to be a fine art commentary on what is wild, what is human, what is in between. Really successful art. And you can see a little bit more of the detail. And then Jessica Joslin. Jessica Joslin is probably one of my favorite artists. She actually is more of a metalsmith than anything. She works with brass and copper and nickel and creates these gorgeous pieces. Sometimes she'll use a real skull, like in this case. This is a turkey skull that she's fitted with a little bit of glove leather and a taxidermy eye. And then here's a little bat she made. She's really, really creative, just incredibly inspired. And she lives in Chicago with her husband, who's also an artist. One of these days, I'm going to get one of her pieces. Yeah, they really are just too cute for words. And one of the questions she gets a lot, like in something like this marmoset skull, is how do you get around the law? How do you get your animal skulls that are prohibited, like owl skulls and things like that? And she's like, I don't go around the law. I obey the law. I get replica skulls. You know, you don't cheat the law. You know, definitely have to be an ambassador when you're a taxidermist, because people are looking to you to do the right thing. This is such a cute piece. I have no idea how she gets them to balance on the balls. It's so cool. And then there's Catherine Coan. Her series is named The Canary Suicides, and it is social commentary for our time. All of her canaries are set up in tableaus of modern death. I just love them. The next one's slightly graphic, but I don't think we have any children, so we're okay. This one's called Bird Bath. Needless to say, she's a pretty successful taxidermist. She actually even was a judge on one of those taxidermy shows called The Immortalizers. She's got a good eye for detail. Next is Iris. I'm not going to even attempt to say her last name. She's an amazing German artist, and she specializes in footwear. These shoes, these stilettos, are completely wearable. She does really, really interesting pieces. I don't know anyone who would wear them, really. You would wear them. Good stuff, though. Now here's that biological art I was promising you. This is Van Gogh's Starry Night reimagined as bacteria in petri dishes. Really, who thought of this? This is just crazy. I love it. Now here's Marae Elizabeth Oppenheim. We talked about her a little bit before as one of the first surrealist taxidermy artists. When did she make this piece? It's a teacup with a teaspoon and a saucer. What year? Venture a guess. Yes?
1937.
Very close. Very close. Have you been on Wikipedia today too?
No, I went to art school.
Okay. 1936.
Really close.
You were really close without going over. All right, and then there's Sarina Brewer. Sarina is credited as defining the term rogue taxidermy, along with two other Minnesota artists. And she loves the surreal, she loves the chimera. Her pieces are incredibly well done. She lives in Minnesota. Here's Mama's Little Helper. I've seen this at different times of year. Sometimes it has like eggnog in the glass, you know, like, it's cute. Now this is one of her griffins. Absolutely stunning piece. I'm envious of this. I totally want one. And what's interesting about this is that at first glance you might think that she nabbed an eagle, you know, to make this piece, but she actually used a chicken. There's no reason why you have to use illegal animals to make stunning artwork. You can absolutely do recreationist pieces. And then this pair of artists is known as the Idiots. And they displayed this really incredible piece about 6 years ago. I'm really not sure what it means, to be honest. And then Polly Morgan, again, social commentary. This piece is called Stillbirth in red. She did 4 more of them in different colors with different colored balloons. And then there's Scott Bivas. He is one of the Minnesota rogue taxidermists. He tends on the more grotesque side of things. Definitely gets your attention. Again, is it art? And then Peter Gronquist. He is amazing. He does these incredible antler, surreal sculptures to go with his pieces. I would love to see one of these in person. They'd have to be humongous and just gorgeous. Nothing like it. Nobody's done anything like this. This is so cool. Victoria Ladig. Now, talking about leather again, when we talk about leather goods, we're always talking about the leather that doesn't have the faces on it. It doesn't have the noses on it. It doesn't have the hoofs on it or the ears or anything like that. Nothing identifying. People are very generally uncomfortable wearing things that have identifying features, with the exception of the ostrich feather, the ostrich leather that has all of like the little quills everywhere, the little dots. But her whole idea was, no, let's take those bits that nobody wants and let's turn them into something special. So here she made an artist palette pouch. Here she made a little handbag. And then here you can see it's actually the ears. So she's really pushing the idea of what is beauty, what is grotesque, what is art. I like her a lot. And then there's vegan taxidermy, which really defies explanation altogether. I don't know why you wouldn't just call this puppetry or fabric art. I don't get it. But needless to say, there are more than a few vegan taxidermists out there. Robert Marbury is one of them. This is his Gnar dog. Cute stuff. Lisa Black takes a whole different take on her pieces. She incorporates a steampunk element, very biomechanical. Is it Bambi anymore, or is it Borg Bambi? And then Kaigo Chang released this piece in 2009. It's actually 99 representations of wolves all crashing into a single glass pane. Has anyone seen this piece before? Yeah? It's really stunning stuff. Again, social commentary. Really beautiful. Can anyone tell me, do you think that these were actually wolf pelts? We're coming from China, so no. What do you think he used instead?
Dogs.
Dogs? He used sheep. He actually used sheep to represent the wolves, which was really oxymoronic, really, really fun. He just dyed all of them to the right configurations of dark and light, and then put them over wolf forms. So it's sheep in wolf's clothing. And now, this is hard for me. This is Enrique Gomez de Molina. I love some of his pieces, and I will be the first one to admit that, wow, his taxidermy does it for me. What's horrible is that Enrique Gomez de Molina imported exotic and endangered species in order to achieve his pieces. They're gorgeous for a reason. they're not supposed to be. He received 7 months in prison, 1 year of parole, and $6,000 fine, which is nothing compared to the fact that he actually sold these sculptures for up to $80,000 a piece. This dude has a target on his back for the rest of his life. Every honest taxidermist just cannot stand this level of betrayal. Well, and nobody likes that anyway. And then we're going to get to probably my favorite taxidermist that I really look up to, Les Deux Garçons from France. And they make the most charming chimeras. They make the most delightful pieces. Sorry, the lights aren't probably great for this. But they love to merge pieces 2 into 1, like Siamese twins. And their attention to detail is bar none. Absolutely no one can do what they do. I mean, that cat looks real. That's really hard to do. And there's a little parakeet on a ceramic figurine. That's a baby zebra with some type of antelope horn. They're just charming. You just can't help but love them. Those are their fawns. And then the little whole pig. And last, that's an antique teddy bear form combined with bulldog or pit bull. And then there's me. My name's Amber Keithley, if you didn't catch that earlier. I am of Memento Mori Taxidermy. And as you notice, there's a lot of knives behind me. It's the first thing everyone notices. So why me? Why did I pick taxidermy? I was a kid that always enjoyed the specimens at the natural history museums. It was always my favorite thing. I wish I could touch them, but I couldn't, you know? And I love animals. I love animals so much that I'm not afraid of their guts. I'm not afraid of what's inside, and I'm not afraid of trying to honor them and give them a second life. Also, I got a lot of encouragement from my cat right at the beginning. My very first piece of taxidermy was that rat from my backyard that my cat brought to me. And this is my very first piece. This was about 3.5 years ago. And I felt like I wasn't doing too bad for that being my first piece. Of course, you can't see like the parts that I did wrong, you know? I overstuffed it, I didn't preserve it right. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't survive, but I was pretty darn proud of it. And I was, at the very beginning, I was making kind of like cute, whimsical pieces, almost always anthropomorphic. I got into the human element really fast. I combined my love of psychology for my love of taxidermy, and I made myself a Sigmund Freud diorama. So here he is, and here he is with this patient and the Eckstein. And this was probably my 3rd or 4th piece of taxidermy. You know, I just absolutely loved it. I almost immediately went into people. Oh, that's a bad picture. That's a little chick in a teacup. Close up. Here's a little circus performer. They're a little rough in the beginning, you know, they usually are. Oh, Rasputin. I started making pieces that made me laugh. As soon as something was funny to me, or it tickled my funny bone, or if it was ironic in any way, I really gravitated towards it. Oh no, we can't see Marie Antoine Rat. She was a beautiful piece. She was probably my first really good piece. And then I made a plague doctor rat. Now, I realize it was the fleas that actually spread bubonic plague, but the fleas were on the rats, so, you know, I love it. It makes me laugh. This is the initial mount of a Siamese twin. This was my first Siamese twin piece, where I took 2 rats and put them together into one. And here's the end result. Here is lab rat. Here's the tailor's apprentice. That was one of my one and only mice. I really have a hard time working with them because they're just so darn small, so I don't really work with a lot of mice. I prefer to work with rats if I'm going to do something like that. At one point, I purchased a dermisted beetle colony, which is the flesh-eating beetle. So I was able to capture them and keep them in a habitat where they would actually render out my carcasses, so they would be used, because at this point I was generating a few carcasses and I didn't know what to do with them. So I let my beetles eat them, and it was a lovely relationship. They grew and grew and grew until one night a raccoon got into their enclosure, and the raccoon didn't really do any damage to the beetles. It was the blowflies that got introduced into my beetle colony that totally wiped them out. And so I figured I'm not allowed to have nice things anymore, and I'm just not going to do it again. Now I compost all of my remains. So this was me, just having fun. Like, I'm having fun doing taxidermy. Life is good, you know? I wasn't terribly ambitious about it at this point. But then I decided to dig a little further, starting to do research and start to make my own creations. And does everyone know the story of the Krampus, the Christmas Krampus? Yeah? No? Okay. Well, he's basically the devil of Christmas. He's Saint Nicholas's companion, and he gobbles up bad children rather than just giving them coal. And it's a folk tale that exists mostly in like Czechoslovakia, Germany, Austria, and to this day there are giant Krampus parades on Krampusnacht, which is December 6th or December 9th. And so he's a folklore figure that I really had to get to know a little better. And so I made myself a Krampus out of a squirrel. And this is my first gaffe. This was something that is not even trying to be real. This is trying to be something so real. And I had a lot of fun making him, and I think I'm going to have to make a lot more of them. I made another one on commission, and it did really well. One of the features of the Krampus that is found in all of like the postcards and all of the references from Germany and Austria is that he usually has one man foot and then he has one cloven foot. So I definitely wanted to incorporate that. That was fun. And then he's just got that mean, gnarly eye. Fun guy. And then here's another Krampus that was in progress for another client. And there's me with my Krampuses, or Krampi. Oh, this was a beloved chicken of one of my very best friends who passed away just overnight. No clue what happened, but I memorialized her as a French hen in a little pot of goodies. He's a cook, chef. It makes a lot of sense. Here's one of the smallest pieces I've ever done. This was a wild mouse, and it was so tiny, I just wasn't even sure I could do it, but you gotta try. And there he is. It's a really good representation of the carcass and then the skin outside of the carcass. So the skin right here has already been mounted onto a very, very tiny replica of the carcass. So that's why you get that full, fluffy figure. I made another fabulous Siamese twin. This one was mounted into a music box that played Swan Lake. And it was those little details that I was obsessed with getting right, like getting all those little fingers to interlock just perfectly. I was, at this phase in my taxidermy career, I was really trying to get it just right. And then here, we actually have him represented today. This is a lovely memorial piece that I did for some friends of mine. And he's mounted on top of books that were actually belonged to the person that we were memorializing. It was a very special piece. And you get to see him. He was a veterinarian, among other things. So that's the stethoscope. And then this was a fun commission that I did for a reading rack, sort of like a library piece. He stacked on the entire set of the Chronicles of Narnia. And he was a gift for the commissioner's sister, and I heard it went over really well, so that's always fun. He's reading a miniature version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, of course. And then we get into some of my favorite pieces that I've done. This I did by special commission. This is The Vermin of Guadalupe. I'm very, very inspired by Spanish colonial art. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm very, very inspired by the iconography. So there's the full piece, and then a close-up. Really delicate piece, really lovely, vivid. And then I do other commissions, of course. You know, here's Princess Leia, straight out of Star Wars, Episode 4. I loved making her blaster. It was too cute. And then sometimes I just do things just to see if I can do them. Like I came across this great collection of doll dresses, and I wondered, would these be good for my pieces? So I had to try it out. And then it's fun to see before and after sometimes. So here's a piece that I just freshly mounted, and here's the final piece that it went into. This was a commission piece for a hairdresser. The request was gothy, pretty hairdresser. So pretty sure I nailed that one. And then things got real. In November of last year, November 6th to be exact, I was invited to show at the Napa Valley Museum, and I made 10 pieces of taxidermy and European mounts in the theme of idolatry. That's all the pieces you see over on this end of the table. Some of them are here on loan. Some of them are still looking for homes. But like I said, I was incredibly influenced by Spanish colonial iconography, and also by Paul Cudendaris, who's an author who wrote a book called Heavenly Bodies. And in it, he profiles a number of Catholic relics that are actually bones that are they're ornately decorated in gold and silver and cut gems and cut glass. And again, these guys are in Switzerland and Germany and Austria. There's very few of them left. I was really inspired by them to do my European mounts, which I did out of sheep's skulls and goat skulls. I've got 2 of them represented right here. And my co-artist in this show is June Altamora. She's a wonderful, amazing collage artist. So I'll take you through the pieces that I made for this. This is Madonna and Child. The Jesus was definitely the smallest piece I've ever worked on, and I was so thrilled to have nailed it on the first try. I didn't have to waste any little bodies or anything like that. Next is Saint Cecilia. Saint Cecilia is right here. She is the patroness of music and literature and poets and did I say music? She's wonderful. She's always represented with a viola. Next we have the Black Madonna of Chichawa, Poland. She is one of the most pilgrimage site. Her church is one of the most pilgrimage sites in all of the world. And then here is a European mount skull of Saint Theodore. Here we have Santa Lucia, an Italian martyr. Really beautiful story about her. Well, actually, it's a really horrific story about her. All the martyrs are pretty horrible. She was martyred at a very young age for being a Christian in a pagan time in Rome. And the legend says that her eyes were gouged out, either by her or by her prisoners. And when her body was finally, when her corpse was laid to rest, it was said that her eyes had been miraculously restored to her. So she has two sets of eyes. That's how she's always represented. Next is Saint Valerius, which I have represented right here. We have Our Lady of Guadalupe, someone near and dear to my heart. We have Saint Felix, represented here. And Saint Peter. This piece is called The Denial of Saint Peter. And it refers to the story of how Peter, on the night of the Last Supper, Jesus prophesied to him that we would rebuke him, that he would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed in the morning. And Peter was like, "Oh no, dude, I would never do that, like, ever." And as the story goes, Roman guards came in and out, were looking for Jesus, and they found Peter, and true to prophecy, he denied Christ 3 times just as the rooster crowed, because he didn't want to get in trouble, and he didn't want to give Jesus up either. And it was such a cause of lamentation for him that he just fell apart. He just totally died. It was an awful, awful moment. And that's what I was trying to capture in this piece, was just that incredible remorse and regret. And then I was in the paper. A couple of months later, the Napa Valley Register ran a story on me, and I was a little suspicious at first. I was like, really? Me? You want to know something about me? That's weird. Okay. And then just like 2 weeks later, I went to my very first taxidermy competition. The California Association of Taxidermists held a show in Woodland, California, and I was able to bring 3 of my pieces, Madonna and Child, the Christmas Krampus, and Squirrel with a Pearl Earring, all which placed, to my delight. In fact, Madonna and Child not only got a first place ribbon, but she swept my category and took best of category. I was thrilled. It was kind of an awesome moment. I made a lot of new friends, mentors. I got a lot of really good critiques. It was a very growing experience for me. So there's me accepting my awards. And like, I'm totally holding it in how excited I am, but like, this is how I felt. Except not about Justin Bieber. Oh, bad photo. So I recently graduated from Sonoma State University, and I was honored by being summa cum laude, and I had to do something different for my mortarboard decoration. So I got myself a pigeon, and I made myself a one-of-a-kind headpiece for my mortarboard, and I was a spectacle. I've never turned more heads in my entire life. I don't think I ever will again either. You should have seen the president and the provost. They didn't even know what to say. They were just, it was really fun. And then I've done some collaborations. This is a piece called Laundry Day that was finished by Darnell Powell, fabulous Santa Rosa artist. She does a lot of different things, assemblage, oil painting, you name it, photography. And if you can see, there's a tiny little girl in there. placed just on the picture frame. And that's this little girl. It's, again, a tiny little mouse. I don't like working with mice. They're very, very hard to do. But this was one of my antique doll dress pieces that I just had to do. So that was really, really fun to collaborate with. And then, in addition to that, I've also collaborated with Darnell on the Biophile Bonnets project, which means that we are reimagining different vintage hats with a naturalistic slant. So some of them have really fun feathers, some of them have beautiful iridescent beetles, some of them have a little bit of recycled fur from antique furs, minks and things like that. It's been a really fun project to do, very rewarding, very fun to make pretty things. And then that's me. So death is only the beginning. That's actually what I write on my business card. It informs my philosophy of working with the animals, of being incredibly respectful and honoring them and not wasting them. So I'll just finish by talking a little bit about why Memento Mori. That's the name that I'm tied to, is Memento Mori Taxidermy. It's Latin. It means more or less, remember that you too must die, or remember your death, something like that. And in art, Memento Mori are artistic or symbolic reminders of mortality. So one that we are maybe more familiar with is the Mexican folk art of Dia de los Muertos. You know, has everyone familiar with that? Yeah? So that's an Ars Moriendi. That is a Memento Mori style of art. And I'm kind of using that same sort of philosophy. And I'm aware that in order for my art to exist, something has to die first. There's not a lot of professions or arts where that has to be. So I'm incredibly aware of that. I try to be respectful of that as much as I can. And I believe that the creatures and the pieces that I work on are Memento Mori for our time. I want them to give folks a pleasant little jolt or a crooked smile. I mean, that's kind of what I'm going for. And the ultimate goal, of course, is that in remembering death, that we bring out the luster in life and to live life with intention. And I would like to thank you at this time for coming. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that you did a portrayal of Our Lady of Częstochowa from Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And did you put a scar across her cheek?
I did.
Oh,
I absolutely did. I don't know if I can show you on here, but let's see if we can. Just to go back just a little bit. I realize not all the photos are the best. So if you can see right here
Oh, I see.
and right
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, there are 2 marks.
You've seen her, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, we've been there a number
You've
of
been there a
times,
number
yeah.
of times?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is.
So what do you think?
I think you did a good job.
Thank you. And you had a question?
I'm just curious, you have a kitty cat.
Of course.
When her time comes, or his time comes, would you consider?
I would not. Here's why. I have 2 reasons why I would not taxidermy my cat. And it's not because it's too close or anything like that. I mean, I'm never going to be ready for his death anyway, because that's how death works. The 2 reasons why I would never taxidermy my cat or anyone else's is that most likely animals die when they're diseased or they're old, and it leaves you with a shell that's not in its prime. You know, it's the difference between, you know, it's a really, really big difference in fur quality, you know, in, you know, maybe they have a little bit of mange or something going on later in life. Maybe they have fur loss. You know, that's just a really difficult battle to deal with. So that's number one, is probably not good enough to use anyway. Number two is that I have seen my cat in 10,000 different expressions. You know, everything between disappointment, you know, to snarling, to joy, you know, to bliss. And I could never catch all of that in one pose. That's just too much to ask. Like I said, there are people out there who do pet preservation, and more power to them. They get it. They study, you know, they use their references. They ask a lot of questions about the owner, you know, from the owners to make sure they get it right. But I would never. I do, however, have plans for his skull.
You do. Well, I'm just asking because I've called 2 taxidermists over the years trying to see if I
I
can
know one
get my, oh, you do?
who's good,
Okay.
and I would be happy to give you her contact.
I'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important niche,
It is.
and you have to do it well. And this woman does it well. So I will be happy to get you her contact.
A question. So when you do get like say a little rat, whatever, do you kind of just like look at it and then kind of let it come to you, and then you're like, oh, or do you kind of just start and then kind of go, wait, like how does it work for you? Like
A little bit of both, really. Usually when I start on a piece, you know, I assess what I've got to work with. Most of my rats I receive from reptile feeding companies. They breed them for reptiles, snakes, lizards, things like that to eat. They humanely euthanize them, and then they fresh freeze them. And that's how I get them. That's the industry standard for taxidermy, for my rats. And so, yes, I'll often look at them because they each have their own characteristics. You know, some of them have bigger ears than others. Some of them have better whiskers than others. And so, yeah, you know, if I have a chance to choose between a few, I'll pick the one that I think is the best. But at some point, there will be mistakes made on my part. And I need to wabi-sabi them. Like, I need to turn that mistake into the highlight of the piece. And so I definitely try to listen to what the piece is trying to tell me it can be. And sometimes it's not what I want it to be. And if you try to force it, it always looks forced. So I try to really see what potential there is and work with that. Yes?
What's the time frame, like from start to finish, from when you receive a piece to when it's its completed form?
I made Dumble Dormouse 2 weeks ago. I like to tell people that if I'm going to work on, say, a rat for them, it's going to take them 3 to 4 weeks. And it's not because it's going to take me 3 to 4 weeks, it's because there's drying time involved. And I will never ever ship out anything that is half dried. The pieces that I work with, they just need to naturally air dry. They shrink a little bit, and as they shrink, I need to fine tune their features. So I will not let anything out of my studio that's not fully cured.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
When you had the 2 rats, and then you had like the body, and then you had what he
Mhm.
is, like, how do you buy the molding to put the fur on, or do you make that?
Yes. Sometimes I make my own foam bodies by using insulating foam that I buy from Home Depot. Sometimes I make my own foam bodies from this Excelsior that we were talking about before, the wood wool. And this, I mean, your imagination is your only limitation with this. You can make anything out of wood wool. You can do full-size mammals out of this. You can do tiny little birds with this. There's nothing you can't do. Then there's also factory-made mannequins. This is a squirrel that's clambering up or down a wall. And what you'd do is you'd rough this up and you'd put a little bit of adhesive on it and then put the skin on it. And so you can use all kinds of things, pre-made, not pre-made. I find that a lot of the things that I do don't have molds for them. So I need to either get cracking and make my own molds, or I just keep on making them by hand.
And the eye eyes?
The eyes, well, some of the rodent eyes are really, really simple, so you don't really need anything fancy. So before the beaded nomad went and cleared out all their beads, I went in and bought all their black beads, all different sizes, because it works beautifully for rodents. But for something like a bird, I usually just buy eyes from a taxidermy supply company. They're mostly in the Midwest, like North Dakota, and you can get all kinds of eyes. I mean, artistic eyes, competition eyes, meaning really good quality, or eyes that cost like $2, you know, it's not a big deal. So I get eyes from local and out of state. Yes?
How long can you keep a body of one of your critters in the freezer before it becomes unusable?
Ooh, that's a really good question, and I don't know. Freezer burn is a real thing,
Yeah.
and the thinner the pelt, I would think the more susceptible to freezer burn it is. I go through my small animals so fast, though, that I haven't had that problem come up yet. With the exception of the ears. Once in a while, there'll be some freezer burned ears. That's the thinnest part of the animal. It's the most vulnerable. And so, yeah, sometimes there's some freezer burned ears that you have to really work with, really kind of be delicate with. Yes?
Would you talk about the proper care and food display? I was going to say feeding, but that's in proper portraits.
Sure. Treat them like mogwais. Don't feed them after midnight and don't get them wet. The best way to not have to deal with maintaining your taxidermy is to put it under a glass dome. I keep a lot of my pieces under a glass dome at home, but it was a little impractical to bring them out, so I didn't bring them with me. The other thing that you can do is just take a brand new, clean, simple paintbrush, and you just lightly dust them from time to time. It's important to store your taxidermy away from drastic changes in temperature. Definitely keep them away from real sunlight. They will fade. That's not a good thing. And keep them away from pets. Keep them away from small children. Although my cat doesn't seem to care about them at all. Yes?
So you seem to show a lot of like care and respect towards the animal. So I'm wondering how you feel about artists like Damien Hirst or Maurizio Cattelan.
You know, I wanted to get to Damien Hirst in this slideshow, but I didn't get there. You know, a lot of Damien Hirst's animals aren't even animals. So I think that that's a moot point right there. But I don't know anything about, see, I didn't get to him because I didn't research if he kills the animals for his taxidermy. I know that he has other people who actually fabricate for him, and so I don't know if they do that or not. So for me, I would be a little offended if he's killing things just to put them on display. That just kind of doesn't seem really cool. But he may not be, and I don't know if he does or not. So I think that would make the difference for me.
Sure.
Yes. Have you read the book, The Taxidermist's Daughter?
No.
It's in the library here. It's a mystery. And it goes into the Potter character and some famous English taxidermists in that period. So that should be your summer reading.
I would love that. I hope it has nothing to do with like horror situations like Alfred Hitchcock, you know, like Alfred Hitchcock had like as much as I love him, he is so to blame for putting Norman Bates as a taxidermist. You know, he set the bar for horror film for forever. I mean, you can't watch a single horror movie, a single scary movie without seeing like, you know, 7 heads of deer, you know, all looming in, you know, it's just become this cliche that taxidermy is a part of horror, is a part of, you know, terrible things. And, you know, that's just how it is.
This is a mystery. It does have a little bit of romance to it, so I think it would be
Maybe on the
Yeah.
lighter side?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, another one that I really recommend for summer reading is Still Life, Adventures in Taxidermy by Melissa Milgram. This is a really, really fun book. It's an easy read, and what she does is she's a journalist, and she goes into different sectors of taxidermy, and just, it's little slices of life. You know, little fun stories. Really, really great, fun book. You learn a lot about taxidermy without having to read a book about taxidermy.
What's your biggest piece?
I think it's a tie between St. Peter and Dr. Grass, the roosters. We can put them side by side. Okay, now.
William.
Yeah. Well, St. Peter's gonna win because he's got more books. Yes.
Do you have any relatives that are in the business, so to speak?
No, not at all. My father was a mason, and my mother was a house cleaner. So no, I didn't have anyone. I had an aunt who was a painter. That's probably about the closest I've got to that. I've actually never taken a college course in art or anything like that. It's just all homegrown. At this point, I've taken 2 taxidermy workshops, which I've been very grateful for. The first was on roosters, where I made Professor Moriarty. And then the second was on European starlings, which I did last weekend. And I don't have a name for this piece yet. Untitled. But I'm looking forward to doing many more apprenticeships, many more internships. That's my goal for the year, is to continue to get bigger, get broader, reach out, learn more, get bigger. I've been self-taught for the majority of this time, and I think I've done well with what I know, but I really want to know more. Yes?
Are you looking for any donations of animals?
You should see my text messages. I get the best text messages. They're always like, "Hey Amber, I found this dead fill in the blank. Do you want it?" And 9 times out of 10 the answer is yes. If it, but then I ask, like, what is it? Because someone's called me with a hummingbird. Can't take hummingbirds. Someone's called me with a woodpecker. Can't take woodpeckers. Someone's called me with a crow. Crows are iffy in California. Can't. I'm not sure about it yet, so I'm gonna say no. So I do get the best text messages. I do have some amazing specimens waiting for me in my freezer, but some of them are big. Like I have a beautiful lamb in my a young lamb in my freezer right now, and I'm gonna wait until after my summer internship, until I've gotten some more skills down, and then I'm gonna go back and bring that lamb back to life. Yes.
Are you looking for other findings to add to your?
My husband and I might need to get a bigger freezer, but yeah. It's funny, I have my own freezer now. It's like Yes.
So you mentioned you were self-taught. Is it just like looking up videos on the internet? Is there books, or just a combination of things?
Yes.
And going further, is there a degree for taxidermy, or what kind
I
of
wish.
what type of training? Because you mentioned conferences. I'm just wondering,
Yes.
is this just kind of like people kind of feel and figure stuff out and then teach their
It's the wild,
techniques?
wild west, to be honest. The first time I did anything with taxidermy, I watched a YouTube video to show me how. And that got me far enough. And then I started getting books, like Taxidermy Step by Step. Really not a bad book. A little dated, not bad. And there's other books like Taxidermy Art by Robert Marbury that has tutorials in the back. They'll actually show you how to mount a squirrel, how to mount a bird, how to do a wet specimen, and how to clean a skull. So this is like less than $20. This is an amazing book. Then I started going to the manuals that you can buy from the taxidermy supply companies. They have different manuals. This is called Breakthrough Mammals. There's also Breakthrough Birds, Breakthrough Deer. So there's a lot of different specialized manuals, and they're a little slightly dated but completely relevant still. Then there comes the question of schools. It is the wild, wild west when it comes to taxidermy schools. There's no accreditation system, so you are buyer beware. You can go to Montana, you can go to North Dakota, you can go to Colorado, you can go all over the country to learn taxidermy anywhere from a week to 8 weeks, a whole, session. And they'll teach you everything. They'll teach you fish, they'll teach you birds, they'll teach you ducks, pheasants, they'll teach you turkey, they'll teach you deer, they'll teach you all kinds of things. It's a little prohibitive, costly, it's a little expensive to do these types of things. And so you really want to pick one that other people have recommended. There's been several that I've looked at. There's dozens of them. There have been several that I've looked at, and I'm like, I can't tell the difference between this one or that one. So I really just want to go with, word of mouth more than anything. Yes?
Are you wanting to get larger with your animals?
Yes, I am. This summer, I have the honor of working with one of the world's best taxidermists, and he is going to show me how to do foxes and some sort of big cat. I'm not really sure what kind of cat I'm going to do yet. I think it all depends on what's in his freezer. But he lives in Alberta, Canada. His name is Ken Walker, and he's won the world championship 3 years in a row. He's incredible, and he's one of those guys who's great at recreations. So he made a panda out of no panda parts. He used black bears, and he peroxided the fur until it got white enough. He made the only Sasquatch in taxidermy ever made. He lives in Canada, come on, you can't blame him. And then he also made a really important piece of Irish elk. Has anyone heard of Irish elk? It's an extinct species that lived in Ireland from about 10,000 years ago to about 10,000 to 7,500 years ago. And the antlers on those things were about 9 foot wide. The biggest antler racks ever in recorded history. And so he wanted to make a replica. It took him 3 regular deer hides to make 1 Irish elk. It was an incredible project. I don't know where the elk ended up, but I hope it ended up in the Smithsonian, because that was some cool stuff. So there's definitely people out there who do recreations and stuff like that. But I think we're going to be focusing on smaller stuff, foxes and cats.
Have you considered making some Star Wars creatures?
Well, I made Princess Leia. Did you miss Princess Leia?
I missed it.
I'm going to show you Princess Leia. And then Bill.
Just curious, what kind of fur would you use for foxes and for cats?
Real fox fur and real cat
You
fur.
can get away with that.
Oh, yeah.
That's legal then.
There we go.
Yeah.
What's the story on kittens?
Well, cats are in their own category in the United States. You can legally possess the bones of a deceased cat. You cannot sell, trade, or barter, or buy cat pelt. So if someone had wanted to have their pet preserved, you can pay a taxidermist for the service of taxidermying the cat, but the owner who now owns that taxidermy cat could never sell it legally in the United States. you could give it away. Absolutely. You can give it away, but you can never trade it or sell it or buy it. Mhm. Are we happy? Everyone's good?
Do we have a closer look?
Of course, yes.
Thank you, Amber. Very good.
Thank you. Please, everyone's welcome. Please come on up. Take a peek.